What's going on, guys? In this week's video I'm finally doing my Netflix's live action Avatar: The Last Airbender remake review. Alright, before we get started I want to make one thing like absurdly clear, and that is the fact that I have just a deep rooted love for the original show. This isn't going to be the most objective view on it in the world. With this subject matter, it isn't going to be possible for me to do it. The original show is my comfort show. It's the show that I watch when I'm not feeling very great, or when I'm ill, or anything like that. It's the show that I go to seek comfort. On top of that, as a young martial artist, when the show was first coming out, it was just when I just first started martial arts, and to see martial arts depicted in a kids show in such a unique way was absolutely brilliant to me. And on top of everything else, the show in and of itself is just a very, very, very high quality TV show. So going into this review, I'm not going to be able to stop myself from comparing it to the original show, because it is an adaptation, just like when people review book adaptations that have massive changes, they're gonna talk about changes that they've made. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's go. Just like in my video for the first episode of this series, I will be covering stuff that I liked first and then moving on from there. And just like in the first one, I'm going to be talking about the acting. Jordan Cormier did it as Aang is absolutely brilliant. He manages to capture Aang's energy and his enthusiasm and his childlike wonder really, really well. And it was really, really good to see that side of Aang continue in Gordon Cormier's portrayal as Aang. I also absolutely love Daniel Day Kim as Fire Lord Ozai. There's a couple of writing choices that I was a bit confused by, which I'll get to later on in the video. However, for his actual performance, his performance was absolutely just stellar, and I absolutely loved what Daniel Day Kim was doing on screen. Maria Zhang is a perfect Suki. Amber Midthunder did a brilliant job as Yue, and Ian Owsley, despite all the controversy around his initial casting, does do a really good job portraying Sokka. Now, in my initial video, my original first thoughts video, I mentioned that I wasn't convinced by Dallas Liu's portrayal as Zuko. And throughout the series, his performance has just gotten better and better and better. His rough edges have started to show more and more as the series progressed, particularly with those flashback episodes. It was really good to see him being like this royal, regal figure, trying to keep a stiff upper lip and just failing at it miserably. I feel like the parts of his performance that I didn't like initially weren't necessarily issues with his performance, and more so issues with the writing choices, which again I'll get to later on in the video. However, Dallas Liu's performance as Zuko is really, really good throughout the series as a whole, and I am very excited to see how he tackles season 2 and season 3 Zuko. Very excited to see that. In terms of the tone, I do really like this more gritty, brutal version of Avatar that they are displaying with us, particularly in like the fight scenes and stuff like that. Do I feel like sometimes they might have missed the mark occasionally with a lack of levity and a lack of laughter in sections where it might be needed? Yeah. However, for the most part, I do really like this more darker tone of Avatar that they're going for. I just feel like they have lent into it just a little bit too much. But the idea is solid, particularly when it comes to the fight scenes, and the fight scenes are just brutal in this show for the most part. There are some funnier ones and more child-friendly ones. However, like, there are some brutal uses of firebending in this show. Absolutely brutal. Again, in my first video, I mentioned how the effects were pretty damn good, and that is still in effect. Here, the earthbending is not the best, like it is in the trailer. The earthbending is not the best. As well as that, the last couple of episodes, the animation of the characters seems a little bit rubbery, a little bit Uncanny Valley-esque. However, other than those 2 points, the effects were absolutely incredible, particularly with the water bending, the fire bending, and the effects on Appa and Momo were very, very good. There are moments of obvious green screen, however, with a TV show which is so high concept, they need to use green screen every so often. I still think the costumes are absolutely phenomenal. They are absolutely brilliant. I understand that there's a sentiment for most people online that they do look a little bit cosplay-esque, and I do understand where that's coming from. I was speaking to a friend about the show a couple of weeks ago, and the way that he described it, and he described it in a very good way, is that the costumes felt like costumes. They didn't feel like outfits that these characters wore. They felt like costumes, and they felt like they got pulled straight off the rack. And I very much agree with that sentiment. It would have been nice to have a little bit of weathering to the characters, particularly in the Southern Water Tribe, when they've hit hard times, as you can tell by the set design. The costumes would have been good to have that little bit of weathering as well. Aang, I can understand with his costume being pristine, but it's primarily the Water Tribe's costumes, specifically with Katara and Sokka. They do just look a little bit too clean for a tribe that has been under siege, and hasn't really recovered from that siege from however many years ago it was, maybe about 10 or so years ago. Maybe not even that. It would be nice to see a little bit more weathering on the costumes, but other than that, I really like the costumes. The actual designs of the costumes stand up absolutely phenomenally well. They do a really good job translating the cartoon costume design into live action while still allowing it to be a live action costume and not looking horrendous. It kind of looks a bit like cosplay, but it looks like the highest tier of cosplay you could ever imagine, and I'm happy with that because it does still look incredible. In the same vein as the costumes, the props and the set design, like I said last time, are absolutely fantastic. I noticed that the dragon scales on one of the walls in Zuko's bedroom is a theme that sticks with a lot of the Fire Nation ships, which is really nice. It adds that level of history with the dragons in the Fire Nation history. It adds that level of world building subtly in the background. And on top of that, all the sets, other than the ones that were like clearly on a green screen, and even then the ones that were on a green screen, the design for the backgrounds were absolutely brilliant. All of the props were absolutely incredible. Yeah, I just can't be upset with it. It was really good. It was incredible. The scene between Yue and Sokka during Yue's sacrifice at the very end of the series was really nice and really sweet. It makes it a little bit more heartbreaking with them not just being like people who might not have been married in the first place, but people who would have gotten together if not for this terrible sacrifice that Yue needed to make. It does add that extra level of heartbreak to it. Would have been nice to have Iroh there as well, because Iroh is a very spiritual person and Sokka isn't very spiritual. It would have been good to have that back and forth between Yue and Sokka, between Yue and Iroh, instead of just Yue explaining it to Sokka and explaining it to the audience. That was just an exposition dump. It would have been nice to turn that into more of a conversation if Iroh was able to stay back like he does in the original show. Other than that, it was a really nice, touching, heartbreaking scene. And now we move on to aspects of the show that I wasn't particularly keen on. And hold on to your butts, because there's a lot of them. Now, when I say there's a lot of them, it all really just comes down to the same sentiment. The one singular idea. And that is the fact that it felt like the writers and the producers and the people over at Netflix just didn't really get the point of a lot of the storylines, a lot of the character arcs. It just didn't really feel like they understood the source material that they were working with. It really felt like they took the best stuff from the first season of Avatar, smushed them together without really taking into consideration what about those things made them so good. They just went, oh no, let's put Jet in it, and oh no, yeah, let's put the Mechanist in it, and oh no, yeah, let's make sure we all know where Zuko's scar came from, and oh no, yeah, let's show why Aang left and how Aang found out he was the Avatar, and oh no, yeah, let's throw in the UA and the siege of the North Pole, because we need to get to see the siege of the North Pole, Northern Water Tribe rather, without actually understanding what made each of those pinpoint storylines such fan favourites, and why that allowed the first season of Avatar to be a very, very good season of kids TV. Take Sokka, for example. I mentioned this last time, that Netflix removed the sexism aspects and the sexist aspects of Sokka's character. However, the issue with that now turns into what is Sokka's character arc, because heaven forbid that we have a character who learns and grows and becomes a better person throughout the course of the show. So his character arc turns into from him learning to be a leader and learning to be someone who sees everyone as equals, into someone who's trying to prove himself as a warrior, then goes, oh wait, no, I think being an engineer might be a good route for me, and then just goes on to be a warrior anyway. That's not a great, that character arc doesn't exactly make much sense, and going forwards into the next couple of seasons, it doesn't really add anything. There's nowhere for him to go from there, really. The reason Netflix took away Sokka's sexist characteristics is because they didn't want audiences to feel like they were justifying or glorifying his sexist behaviors and his sexist mindset. However, missing the whole point of that character arc is to show that those views are wrong. That women can be fighters just as good as men can be. Taking that away from Sokka and taking that learning aspect away from Sokka takes that learning aspect away from us as the viewers, and takes it away from younger audiences who might be watching this show before they watch the original show. That's like pretty much the whole point of Suki's character, is to show Sokka and us, the audience, that women can be just as capable fighters as men. Every time we see Suki, every time we catch up with her, it is a reminder that Sokka has grown as a character in that viewpoint. First time we meet Suki, Sokka is dead against the idea of women being fighters. He's like, oh no, women can't be fighters, all they're good at is sewing. And Suki kicks him into gear and gets him on the right footpath. Next time we meet Suki in season 2, when they're doing the Serpent's Pass, he still sees her as a capable warrior, but he's still trying to protect her. Steering her away from the edge of the cliff, he's been very protective over her in all these different aspects. And it's less him not seeing her as a capable warrior, but more him seeing as, I need to protect this person. And again, she shows him up again by saving Toph instead of Sokka saving Toph. And then when we finally catch up with her again at the Boiling Rock, Sokka has grown so much over the course of the series that when Suki is the one who is taking out the Warden and fighting Ty Lee, Sokka does not feel like he needs to defend or needs to protect Suki because she's a woman, because she's a capable fighter. And if we take that aspect away from Sokka, that takes out all that character development from Sokka, but it also takes out the whole point of Suki being in the show. Like, other than that thing with Suki being a catalyst for Sokka's character arc, she's only really there for Sokka having a girlfriend and liking Sokka. So now in this version, Suki's whole point is to have a crush on Sokka. Now, like, if anything, seems more problematic than having the original storyline in the first place. Now the point of Suki is going, oh no, she's a girl who likes a guy. We've grown past that. We don't need to see a girl who likes a guy. We've seen that so often. We need to see more women who are able to be fighters and who are able to be independent from men. And at the moment, we're not seeing that we didn't see that from Suki in her episode. And that all comes down to Sokka not having that aspect at the beginning of the show for him to grow through, and for Suki to show him that he's wrong. Speaking of Suki really quick, I just want to talk about that very end of her episode. How that in the first time we see Suki, I've always really seen that as not a romantic relationship in the first episode. I never really saw the Sokka-Suki dynamic become romantic until the Serpent's Pass. I always saw that as that, particularly the kiss at the end of the episode where Suki kisses Sokka and goes, "I am a warrior," kiss, but I'm a warrior too. Like, I never really saw that as a romantic kiss. I more saw that as a slap across the face to wake him up and go, being a warrior and being a woman aren't two aren't mutually exclusive. You can be both. At the beginning of the episode, Sokka saw Suki as just a woman. At the end of the episode, he just saw her as a warrior. And the whole point was he needed to see her as both. And that kiss, to me, always read less romantic and more, I can be both, you idiot. So when, at the end of the season, when he meets Yue and he starts pining over Yue, we don't have that, oh, he should be, like so is he, like, cheating on Suki right now with Yue? But in this version, that is a very romantic kiss. They very much have feelings for each other, to the extent of Suki even giving Sokka her fan as like a memento of their time together and being like, remember me. That's what that symbol means. If someone's given someone something, they're not going, oh, don't worry, you can, like, we're not together. And that's like a, here's something to remember me by. Which is a very romantic thing. So when, like, 4 episodes later, when he meets Yue, when we've still got Suki on the brain because it's not that long ago that we saw Suki, it doesn't, like, it makes it harder for the viewer to acclimate to the romantic relationship with Yue when Suki is just not that far behind us and was a very romantic relationship for Sokka. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. Like, there's loads of examples of the fact that those over at Netflix didn't really understand the whole point of certain character arcs and certain story beats. Like, Jet was supposed to be the reason that Katara isn't a trusting person, right? Katara meets Jet, starts to really like Jet, potentially starts to form romantic attachments to Jet. Jet tricks her into helping her, doing something absolutely horrendous. Katara stops him, closing up her walls, and that's the first step of her not being a trusting person. Which then later on, when Jet comes back and turns good and then dies, that kind of puts that wall down again. And then when Zuko does the exact same thing in the finale of the first season, those walls come back up, and they come back up doubly hard because it's happened twice now. But now that's only going to happened once, so it's not going to be as severe of a reason why Katara needs to be so untrusting of Zuko in the 3rd season when it comes to help. Like, and in the show they didn't. It feels like they just didn't understand why Jet was supposed to be like in the original show. Jet's plan would not have worked if Katara didn't help him. Jet's plan to flood the Earth Kingdom village, or the Fire Nation village, would not have succeeded if Katara and Aang didn't help him move the water from the underwater reservoir into this basin above it. That would not have worked, which, in hindsight, now that I'm thinking about it, what would have Jet's plan be if he didn't randomly bump into a waterbender and the Avatar? What would... Anyway, but in this version, Katara's got nothing to do with Jet's plan. They bump in, like, Jet helps them get into Omashu. Jet and Katara spend some time together, and Jet tries to convince Katara that the Mechanist isn't the best person on the planet. He's a Fire Nation spy. Katara has a confrontation with her brother, has an argument with her brother over the fact that who's right and who's wrong. Then Katara stumbles upon Jet's plan to assassinate him and the Earth King. And then, key thing here, Katara stops it from happening. Katara succeeds and stops the thing from happening in the first place. What is going on? For those who haven't seen the original show, Jet's plan isn't to kill Boomy and the Mechanists, because those episodes are completely unrelated. Jet's plan instead is to flood and destroy an Earth Kingdom town that has been taken over by some Fire Nation soldiers. The plan being to kill the Fire Nation soldiers, and as collateral, killing all the innocent Earth Kingdom civilians that just so happen to be in the town. Or maybe Fire Nation colonists. I can't remember the specifics. I think it's Fire Nation colonists now that I'm saying it out loud. Either way, innocent civilians, as well as the Fire Nation soldiers. And Katara and Aang didn't really know this plan. They thought it was just a military camp, or they thought it was just military people there. They didn't realise it was just a full-on town. However, the point I'm getting to is that in the show, Jet's plan works. They have a big fight. They have a big, like, kerfuffle. They have a big fisticuffs, and they manage to defeat Jet in a combative sense. However, Jet's plan still goes ahead during that fight scene, or at the end of that fight scene. Jet's plan still goes ahead. The dam still breaks. The water still goes through, and the Earth Kingdom town is destroyed. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that Sokka does manage to get all the civilians out of the town before the dam breaks. However, Katara still needs to deal and process for at least a little bit of time the fact that she was complicit in potentially hundreds of people's deaths. Hundreds of people's innocent people's deaths. And it's because Jet tricked her. It's because Jet coerced her into aiding him in this terrorist attack. And let's not even go to the point of the fact that Sokka saved those people. Jet still destroyed the town. The people's homes, people's workplaces, people's livelihoods, people's possessions and prized belongings, and the whole point, the whole thing that makes you, your home. Jet took that away from those people, and Katara helped him do it. But no, in this one, Katara just sees Longshot firing a bow and arrow and splashes some water on it and saves the day. Where's the growth from character? Where's the low point for Katara in that? Where's the betrayal? Like... Anyway, this kind of speaks to a bigger problem that I have with this version of Katara. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Gio and Dio does a fantastic job portraying Katara. However, she does a fantastic job portraying the softer aspects of Katara, because the show writers and the showrunners don't give her the opportunity for us to see the harder sides of Katara. The, like, I trusted you and you did this horrible thing. You made me help you do this horrible thing and I trusted you because of it. We don't see that side of Katara. We don't even see that side of Katara when she's going up against Pakku in the Northern Water Tribe. We don't see that grit and that fighter instinct. We don't see that grrr from her. We just see the whole woe is me side of it. We want, like, Katara is a fully fleshed out character. She's not the caricature from the Ember Island players. She is her own character who has grit and who has drive and who has more personality than just my mum being dead. Sticking with that same character arc from this version of the show, let's talk about Boomy. What did they do to my boy? Like, and I'm not talking about the fact that he looks like Neil Patrick Harris's version of Count Olaf from A Series of Unfortunate Events. I'm not talking about the terrible looking earthbending, both from an effects standpoint to a choreography standpoint. I'm not even talking about the fact that Aang figures out who Boomy is in the first time they properly sit down and meet each other. I'm talking about the fact that Boomy is supposed to be an ally. Boomy is supposed to be someone that we can look at and go, oh no, this person loves Aang. This person would do anything for Aang. But in this version of the show, Boomy is a grumpy, foul old man. He's not King Boomy, he's the fisherman from the storm. He is this grumpy, senile, old fart who is so angry at Aang for leaving and abandoning the world. That's not who Boomy is supposed to be. Boomy is supposed to be the ally. Boomy is supposed to be the person that in season 2, the plan is to go learn earthbending from Boomy. Like, we're supposed to look at Boomy and go, oh no, yeah, in season 2, it makes sense that they go back to Omashu to learn earthbending from Boomy, because he's gonna want to do that. He likes Aang. Of course he's gonna want to help him learn earthbending. But that we don't get that from this version of Boomy. Why would Boomy help him? Boomy hates him. Even at the end of this version of the show, and when they're all talking and talking about the future plans, and they go like, we're gonna stay here for a little bit and we're gonna learn earthbending, and we're gonna learn waterbending, and then Katara says, and then on to earthbending, and Sokka goes, it looks like we're going back to Omashu. The implication there is the audience is supposed to go, oh yeah, because Boomy can teach him earthbending. But I was just sat there going, why are they going back to Omashu? Why would they go back to Omashu after the horrendous reaction that Boomy gave him in the first place? Boomy does not like Aang. Boomy does not particularly want Aang to succeed. He thinks he's a coward. He thinks he's a bad avatar. he tried to teach him something. He tried to teach him the fact that he needs to be more brutal, or he needs to be able to kill, or something. But it in the original show, Bumi teaches Aang to think outside the box, and he does that to help Aang become a better avatar. And the only reason he does it in a dangerous way, in a stupid way, is because, in Aang's own words, he's a mad genius. He's crazy. He's a lunatic. But at the end of the day, he's trying to help Aang learn a very valuable lesson to think outside the box. In this version, he's not doing that. He's just an angry, bitter old man. Now I'm going to say it. I'm going to say something, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. And I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that because this is probably a hot take. I didn't like Zhao in this version of the show. I didn't like Zhao. I didn't think he was a particularly compelling character. Don't get me wrong. The original version of Zhao wasn't that much of a compelling character. However, the kind of character that he was necessary. Was absolutely necessary for Zuko and for Iroh to be seen less as just a villain. And we needed that fiery, that hot-headed tempered of the Fire Nation. So when Iroh does his speech later on about how the Fire Nation is passionate and sometimes hot-headed, and sometimes has a short temper, we need to have seen that. So that makes sense for Zhao to be this more hot-headed person. And that is not what we get with this version of Zhao. Now this is not a dig at Ken Leung in the slightest. He does an amazing job with what he's given. He's a very talented actor. He's done a lot of good work before. He will do a lot of good work after, and his performance in this is very, very good. I just don't like the choices that the writers made about what kind of a character he is. He doesn't seem like this physically threatening commander of the Fire Nation. He feels more like Long Fat. He feels more like a conniving, snivelling, like Grey Worm from Lord of the Rings. He feels like someone who would whisper in your ear who would whisper in the king's ear to do something, rather than a commander. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't feel like a physical threat. It feels like if Sokka and this version of Zhao got into a fight, Sokka would probably win. And that's from a secondary antagonist who's supposed to be not only an antagonist to our main characters, but also an antagonist to our primary antagonist, to Zuko. That's not what we need. We can wait until we get to Long Fat to have a more political adversary. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of this version of Zhao, and I know I'm going to probably get a lot of flack for that. However, I just can't get behind it. I don't like the fact that Zuko doesn't abduct Aang in the finale and take him out into that tundra and carry him through this Arctic desert with no plan, because we don't see his desperation, and that is supposed to show and highlight Zuko's sheer desperation to get Aang, to get a hold of him by any means. If that means I die in the process, that means I die in the process. We don't see that from him, because we don't see him get to that point where he has him, he's able to get him, and he tries to do it. Technically he succeeds. He's captured the Avatar. He just doesn't have an out plan, because he didn't think it through, because he was too desperate. He was too focused on his goal. He didn't think about what happens after. And that's gonna affect later on the series, in season 2, when he turns back to the bad side and he has that, oh wait, no, he has that flip. That flip isn't going to feel justified, because we haven't seen how desperate he is. It's not gonna seem, it's gonna come so far out of left field, and the original show, it is on that borderline. If we didn't see how desperate Zuko was before, that would have seemed really, oh wait, what? I thought he was a good guy now. Why is he doing this? It doesn't make sense. But because we saw how desperate he was in the first season, it makes sense. We didn't get that here. So they're going to need to do some serious work in season 2 to get him to that point. I don't like the fact that they use war balloons so early in the show. I feel like it is going to take away from the Day of the Black Sun using them so early now. I don't like the fact that Aang doesn't bend a drop of water in the entire run of the show unless he's in the Avatar state. I don't like the fact that, like, this show is supposed to be about him learning the 4 elements, and he doesn't learn a single thing in this season of the show. And I don't like the fact that they completely missed the point of Iroh's character. That's the biggest thing for me, really. More so than anything else that I have said or that I will be saying later on. This is the big thing. I don't like the fact that they missed the point of Iroh's character. Don't get me wrong. Paul Sung-Young Lee does an amazing job as in portraying Iroh as a character. He handles the grief of handling Liu Ten's death absolutely beautifully. He cares for Zuko. He is strict when he needs to be strict. He's funny when he's lighthearted when he needs to be lighthearted. However, we don't see, and again, it comes down to the writing, we don't see the rougher edges around Iroh, and I don't mean the more serious side. He's supposed to be a glutton and a little bit lazy. He's supposed to be like this Santa Claus figure. So when he becomes serious, like in the Spirit Oasis, or in the future, like in Lake Laogai, or when he's in the prison, it feels serious. Like, we're supposed to have this fun, carefree, happy, jolly uncle who's a little bit lazy, who likes his food, who likes his tea, who's a nice guy. So when he becomes serious, like when he's saying, whatever you do to that fish, I will unleash on you tenfold. When he's under Lake Laogai and he's shouting at Zuko about he needs to look inwards and see what he wants and find what he actually wants to do with his life, or when he's in the prison and he's just broken and he's not talking at all, we need to sit. We're supposed to feel like, oh shit, this is serious. Uncle Iroh is pissed off. We need to see that. And we're not going to, because he's too serious in this show. He's not that jolly person. He has moments of laughter, he has moments of levity. However, he's not the fun-loving Iroh that we know and love. I'm not a fan of the fact that Iroh seems to be like a conflicted character in this version of the show. Like, he seems genuinely conflicted about the fact that he's burning Zuko's face. Like, Iroh, like, Ozai, Ozai, Fire Lord Ozai, not Iroh, Ozai, is supposed to be pure evil. He is supposed to be the big bad. There's no redeeming that guy. He's the guy who banished his son to do a mission that is impossible to complete, basically turning his son into Sisyphus because he refused to fight. Remember that Ozai didn't banish Zuko for speaking out of turn. He banished Zuko because he refused to fight back. He refused to stand up and fight his father. That's why Ozai sent him on this mission. That's why that's the whole point. And when you watch the full show, you realise that people didn't think Aang was actually around. People thought the Avatar was no more. People thought that the Avatar isn't a thing anymore. So the whole reason that my light died, and it's very warm. I didn't think LEDs were supposed to get warm. That's not good. That light was on full charge when I started recording. Shows you how long I've been recording this video for. Anyway, in this version, he genuinely thinks he's doing good for Zuko. He genuinely thinks that sending him on this mission will teach him to be stronger. And will teach him not to be restrained and stuff like that. And burning his face is a part of that. And you can see the conflict in his face. And again, reiterating, Daniel Day Kim is an amazing actor. You can see it in his face when he's doing the burning. There's a tear falling down from his face. There's not supposed to be a tear falling down from his face. He's not supposed to be this conflicted person. He's supposed to be evil. In the end of the series, Aang isn't supposed to be conflicted about killing Ozai because he's a conflicted person, but because he's a person. We don't need Ozai to be conflicted about certain things and be a confused character and being misunderstood for that storyline to work. All my grievances basically come back down to the same point of they missed the point of a lot of the show. And I could go on and on and on about all the different reasons as to why that is the case. However, I could do it for ages, and this video is already getting on for a while. I've already been recording for over an hour. My battery on my camera is about to start dying, so I need to start wrapping up and get to my conclusion anyway. If you put the show in isolation, yes, it's a decent show. But just like all adaptations, you need to put it in context next to the original source material as well. And it just does not hold up compared to the original source material. Now, I know Netflix. I've been on the internet long enough now to know Netflix's MO with this sort of stuff. They do not handle criticism well. When they get criticised, they don't learn from their mistakes. They just cancel the project in general. They don't correct, they cancel. That's the whole MO of Netflix. And I really hope they don't do this. I've already seen the news that they've greenlit a second and a third season of Avatar. I really hope they don't go back on that from what the internet is saying. And I really hope that they listen to the audience and make these corrections and listen to the fan base that love this show so much. And the whole reason that they're making this TV show is because the fan base is so strong. That's the whole reason that they can make this show. Because the cast and the crew and everyone else who made this show possible has a clear love for the original show and has a clear love for the characters and the world that they are adapting. We just need the Netflix executives and the writers to be on board with that as well. In the true legacy of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the first season is the weakest. The first season is the weakest of the show. So they've still got room to improve. They just need to understand the characters that they're adapting, and they need to understand the source material that they're adapting as well. But anyway, that was my review of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys next week. Bye!